Yeah, I've been trying to forget them, but it just doesn't happen. It's thinking the other day, I thought the person we had there's only two. David and God and Jesus. That's it. And you got two black women handling it. And so it's just amazing reverse operation. There's all the very qualified people that can do a great time. That's the problem at all. That's what you do. That's what you do. It's the best part of the best part of the world. That's like strange. This kid got a good they're like something wrong and definitely I think their annual fee would have to put it all together. I thought you'd be a sweet. The U.S. is we have to find places. I'm telling you, I said, let's follow that. I can't see you know, it's an observation. Yes, yes. So we start here to say okay, how you doing? Yeah. Good. I'm doing fine. Good. How are you? I need Mr. Harrison. Sorry, I just saw my. Hands. The audit, if you like copies, your hard copies, the annual meeting report, or the annual report was sent out with your election materials. If you want to make a copy, there's a copy up there. We're doing questions today by index cards. If you have a question, there's an index cards and pencils up front, write it down, give it to one of the staff members, and we'll do the question and answer at the end. I think we have all the board members here. And I am going to turn it over to our board president, Carlton Downs. Thank you, Peter. Firstly, I welcome everyone to come in this morning when there's such a beautiful morning outside, sunshine and blue skies. But today's a very important day for us. It is the annual meeting, so there'll be some announcement. I'm going to ask to welcome and thank all of you again for being here and showing up. And following our established procedure, as Peter said, we'll accept written questions via cards from the floor from property owner and address. Please raise your hand if you need a card. Anyone need a card? If you do, please raise your hand. At this point, Mr. Secretary, do we have a quorum?
President.
Okay, thank you. The quorum has been attained. So the purpose of the meeting is to announce the results of our election board of directors, announce the members of the nominating committee, to hear our year-end financial report, honor committee, volunteers, clubs, and others for their contributions to the HHP, POA, staff, the board members, and outgoing board members. At this point in time, we'd like to appoint Director of Security, Major Warren Gable, as Sergeant at Arms. He's a gentleman so snappily dressed over on the left. He's our Sergeant at Arms. And following that, we'd also like to introduce our very, very committed, ethical, honest, and candid board members who are sitting to my left, who will please stand as we announce you in your position. Margie Leckers, who is our board vice president and chairwoman of nominating and strategic planning committees. You can give her a round. Our Madam Treasurer is Lori Schmidt, is not here today. She took a trip and she came down with a small load. So she wanted to be very cautious and caring about you and not attend today. So she doesn't affect anyone with the mind at this point. With that, we'd like to announce Mr. Ed Shopman, who is board secretary and chairman of the Recreation Committee. The next
Let's tear up on there.
is chairman of the Communications Committee and also the chair of our ad hoc technology committee. Now, one of our legendary members, Mr. Jordan Berlin, is chair of the Architectural Review Board, which is a wonderful opportunity if you've ever participated or want to participate. We talk to Mr. Berlin about options and how to pursue a committee. Mr. Berlin. The next board member is Mr. Rex Garmus. Mr. Garmus is chair of the Covenant Committee. So he is the person who identifies in this committee for recommends as much to the board, serves the covenants of breaches and what have you, or changes. So please recognize Mr. Garmus. Can't steal from. You see, the board has a little humor in it, right? Didn't know that, did you? The next gentleman is Mr. Mike Harris, who is chair of the Maintenance Committee. Very particular about ensuring things get produced on time in conjunction with the data available and the rest of the staff and our business partners. So thanks for helping me get PLA and operate as well as.
Hold the mic closer.
Can you speak into the mic?
And then last but not least, is Mr. Keith Slagle, chair of the Security and Safety Committee.
Well, with that, I'll turn it over to our general manager to announce the wonderful staff.
Okay, Todd Glisher, who's over manning the IT portion. Todd, raise your hand. He's our assistant general manager. And I'm handling our reception desk, liaisons with communications, and handles all things financial. David Mills, our director of security. Retiring. Major Warren Gaither. Now, we're going to honor Warren later on. I'm going to pick on him a couple of times, but at the end of April, Warren's retiring after 25 years. Captain Vanessa Green, who will be moving up into the director position when Warren retires. And we have a new name for Larry Cornstadt. Larry doesn't have his uniform yet. We're calling him Alpha Captain, because he will be the new deputy director of security. And Chrissy Christian's in the back, I believe, with Michelle Chisholm. Chrissy does all of our recreation activities. Michelle does ARB and covenants. I believe Jan Westerfeld is back there with her, assistant activities director, or excuse me, lifestyle. I'm gonna get beat up for that. Our lifestyles coordinators, Chrissy and Jen. Trevor Scott. Also, let's expand to pickleball and bocce. Pippi, where's Pippi? Pippi Core is our communication director. And we're zooming this meeting. So just so folks know. Sharon White, my administrative assistant. Did I miss anybody? One thing, I saw Council Member Bryson come in. Where's Patsy? Actually, thank you for being here. But I will turn it back over to our illustrious board president, Carlton Dallas.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, after that, if we could, hold on one second. Ask Mr. Shotland to read the minutes of March 2024 meeting. Okay, so move to second. Second, properly second. All right. Oh, I said private side, not Mr. Robert's room. Okay. In a corporation, you always look to see who's the highest ranking person in the room and you follow them. Okay. All right, so
You're the highest person.
okay. All in favor?
Hi.
All in favor? Perfect, thank you. Okay, with that, we would like to have the report of the board president. I guess I am that person again. Okay, so I want to say first and foremost, thank you for having been such an active community of residents, citizens, and people who want this plantation to be even better than it has been. You've come to us with your comment, your thought, your suggestion, and they are fielded and they are honored and reviewed, and where possible, they are implemented and considered. So with that, I want to do a very brief review of the things that have been accomplishments over the last year. Now, I did not drive these, so don't think because I know when I'm speaking about them, I was the catalyst for them. It has been a collaborative outcome with the GM, staff, board members, residents your input. So let me tell you a couple, about 8 or 9 things that have occurred. The first is there was a complete review of covenants and strategic plans and SWOT analysis by committee leaders. And that was led by Ms. Margie Leppers, our VP. So one of the things we wanted to do was to ensure we are current on what the documentation that we go by says. So that was a serious effort and was much appreciated. The next effort that was led by the staff and our treasurer and CFO, treasurer, Ms. Gordon Schmidt, was to codify and update, basically to make permanent that we operate, and this POA has operated for years under a concept of fiscal discipline. So as you know, we have very little debt. Your assessment is one of the most reasonable in the whole low country. How many of you saw the article in your paper like 2 weeks ago where it compared assessments versus others? Could you believe some of the $20,000 plus assessments? And what is ours? By 13, okay? So tremendous value, and we want to codify that. That's what we want to sustain going into the future. The next thing is to review and update financial control. Very important. How many of you keeping up with what's happening? I won't name the county, but there's one county that's had a lot of things hit the front pages of the paper. We want to avoid that. How do you avoid that? You avoid it by going into detailed review of what's there now. Make sure you close the gap. So that's the second thing. The other thing we wanted to do and did was sustain operating controls. One of the ones that Mr. Lindstrom started and Ms. Lee continued was the storage space. So you look at the improvements there, the impact on the financial line, bottom line, so you want to give credit for that effort. That also was stewarded by the general manager. So reasonable there. If you have your audit, you see we have a clean audit. Peter, how many years have we had cleaned up?
Oh, gee, I think we lost count. 15 times or so, waste.
Okay. So now, the other thing I really want to note also is more personal and expanded communications. Have you seen the recent version of the plantation literature? Have you seen the article on a gentleman named Howard Wright? Written by Mr. Tom Dorsal, who was a resident here, Notre Dame graduate over against him, but also a professor, former professor at Francis Marion University. So Peter and his staff have looked at how do we improve your awareness of the caliber of people that are right here. So kudos to Peter and Tiffany and others who have been part of that. So that's one of the more, that's another accomplishment. The other thing is we have to applaud all of you and the other 9,000 and 9,700 people who are not here because you volunteered. If you saw the July event where we had so many volunteers, that is an indication of how much you care for this particular plantation POA and how you actually invest your time. That makes us distinctly different from a lot of POAs, and please don't ever forget that. The fish camp, some other examples. And then I'd also like for you to know there are close to 70 members of the POA, 70 residents who sit on permanent committee who are helping to guide outcomes that you see published in the house. So I think that's a real good indication of engagement there. There's also a brisk move to automation. Now, automation is going to be frustrating, okay? At times, when I was working on, I implemented the SAP in Africa, because no one associates SAP in Africa as operating unit, but we did it so much so that Mother Chevron, quote unquote, took what we did and deployed it in other regions such as South America and Southeast Asia. So we'd like to note that Mr. Barham, he's looking right there at me. And with Peter, who work together to make sure that there's continuity and sustainability once it's deployed. So be patient with us in that regard, if you will. There also was a couple of events or programs. One was elevating board visibility. Now, I'm the only board member here today that's not wearing their lapel. 10. So I am accountable and I apologize for that. So fessing up. The other thing we did to make life easy, that's another program. That program is our things such as automation. Things such as what Peter has led and his staff have done in terms of soliciting input from. So those are the types of things that are strategic in nature, intentional, but very low visibility. And then with the last thing is that we have a phenomenally good GM. And his role is so complex. We wanted to make sure that the board directs and they empower the GM to go out and continue to provide stellar solutions proactively so that we can benefit from all of his tremendous experience and intellectual properties and abilities. So with that, I'd like to thank you for the honor of having served as your president for the last 12 months. It has been a wonderful learning journey for me. For those who know me, you know I'm a big nerd. I read a lot. You might get emails from me at 3:30 in the morning. Unfortunately, I shouldn't have said that because the wife, she's sitting. I'm making mistakes this morning. Okay, so that's the report of the board president. And now, Peter, turn it up to you and Mr. Lindstrom.
Yeah, Lori, unfortunately, Lori Schmidt could not be here today. She emailed me and asked that I, make sure she expressed her, deep regret for not being here. But, wanted all of you to know, that the finance committee reviewed 5 different financial policies, revamped them, recommended them to the board adopted them, and that we did a review of all of our investments. And we bring in, as you know, because you pay that assessment in January, about $6 million in assessment revenue. And we invest that. And it gets invested over the year. And then each of those come due during some portion of the year so we can pay our bills. And we wanted to make sure that we were getting the best value from those investments. And many of you know, the insurance rates have gone up. Many of us are wishing insurance rates would come down. But from an investment standpoint, if you have a CD, now, we're getting a significant return on that revenue. And they went and they looked at several different brokerage houses and several different investment venues. And we're very, very conservative. I mean, the number one criteria for any investment we do is preservation of capital. We don't take risks. And after a lengthy investigation, they came to the conclusion that the brokerage house that we were using was the best value for the money. And she wanted me to pass that on to you as well. And Todd, are you going to pick it from here?
As you can see, I had a little slide here because I talked to Lori as well. And Peter hit on a lot of these, but the one thing that I wanted to just kind of touch on that he didn't hit was the commercial insurance. And as you all know from your own homeowners insurance, that insurance right now is just crazy with all the stuff that's going on. And I don't anticipate it getting any better, obviously, with all the events that have happened. But committee spent a lot of time, a lot of effort. I think we had close to a 3-hour meeting going through it. We had our insurance agent come in, making sure that we had all the coverages we needed. Unfortunately, we did budget a major increase. We still went over budget. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Even with, some pretty hefty increases on the budget side. But she also just wanted to point out, what an excellent financial position we were in, and of course that we had the clean life. So that concludes Lori's portion of the presentation today. And now we'll get into to my report. I'm going to give you a little more details and hit on a few things that Lori did not talk about. We'll talk about some technology upgrades. We'll go over the revenues and expenses. Touch on the audit. We'll touch on fund balances. It's always nice to see where we are as far as the balances and the different funds that we have and how they all kind of work together. and then we'll talk about assessment. Technology upgrades, and the whole technology thing seems to be the big buzzword of the last couple of years. So we just kind of figured we would kind of show you a lot of things that are going on here. We did purchase a new, I say purchase, we actually rent a new database software and county package, which is a new break, and it's actually integrated with some of the other software that we have, the new communications piece of the platform, which is Engage. How many of you are signed up with Engage? That's a good.
You can talk to your neighbors.
If you're not, this is your last one. As of later today,
Yeah,
this afternoon or early evening.
Yeah.
The website, hplandfoundation.com, will now kick over and take you right to our new website. So the Engage program, which is a communications tool, and I'll talk about it right here, all the different pieces it has on it. But one of the things that it does come with is the website, which is nice and interactive with all the other pieces. So now it kind of all fits together as one thing. So if you haven't, get it done. Maybe it'll be here after. I think you even have a machine set up if you want to get set up so you can see Pippi. She'll get you squared away. Online scheduling. That's one of the things that we were trying to work with, as you know, for the recreation programs and activities. We just completed Kids Camp. Kids Camp was our little guinea pig. We did close to around 80 grand through online payments, online registration through Kids Camp. So that was kind of our test run to make sure we could work through all the kinks. I will tell you, it took a lot of time to set up, a lot of time, just making sure that all the, T's were crossed, I's were dotted, and making sure everything worked, and it worked well. So we were really happy with that. Again, the new website, that'll basically, the only difference really, it looks a little different, obviously, or the big difference, I should say, is this piece does have a owner section, so some private pieces. Our website before was all open, and a lot of this website is open. One of the things that we want from a website is for it to be an information tool. We want, to be able to refer realtors there, because rather than all the questions coming up, hey, go to the website, all this stuff's out there. You get all this information, get it to prospective owners, share the information. Rather than, some of these communities which just have completely locked down websites, we want to have an open piece of it. But you do have a closed piece, and that allows you to do things, like schedule a seminar, sign your kids up for camp, all these types of things. That'll be available. It has a lot more tools, and I don't want to waste a whole lot of time on this. And I don't think you spend a lot of time teaching me, but there's a lot more tools for clubs, for different programming to get information out and back and forth. So we're hoping to really kind of push that and take advantage of that as we go forward. Has an online calendar, which is nice because you can go to the calendar and it has online links, and you can link to different events and whatever. So you have all these different tools that we'll have available. Email blasts. So those of you who have not signed up for Engage, we've been kind of running two systems here for a while because we didn't want you to miss out, especially through the election. We wanted to make sure everything was in place. No longer. So you're cut off. So if you stop getting information from us, it's because you're not signed up with Engage. You need to get on Engage, get that set up. We added the Court Reserve over at Tennis Center, which is a nice program that allows you to, online and reservations. That does the tennis, the bocce, the pickleball. A great program. Obviously, gives you a lot more flexibility there, and we've been really happy with that. One of the other little things, we had a little digital announcement boards. There's one here, and there's a couple at the office. Just another way to kind of have some rolling information, keep you guys up to speed, to keep people, while by, I didn't know that. So we have, that is a new tool as well. All right, let's talk operating revenue. We did very, very well this year, and we finished the year significantly over budget, about 550,000, which is good. We were almost right on budget with expenses, so we came on the revenue side. The decal daily passes just continue, and it kind of blows my mind because we kind of leveled it off thinking that with the waterway gardens and with the Charles being done, those were obviously big projects that created a lot of, commercial activity, that it might kind of even off a little bit. It did. It just continued to go upward, and we'll see that shortly. Tennis, and we have a couple of things that were significantly up on the revenue side, and their expenses were up a little bit too, but the revenue offsets that. So when we add new programming like tennis, we decided to go ahead and add some afternoon and early evening programming. So now we're staffing it, but we're bringing in more revenue, which more than offsets the cost. But it was just something that we didn't have built into the budget going into 24. That's the same thing with the advertising. Advertising's up. We didn't budget for Plantation Living to be as many pages throughout the year. We budgeted a couple editions to go extra pages. We went the whole year with the extra pages, but we made up for it plus on the advertising side. So there are some things like that revenue up, expenses up, but we still netted a positive variance even for the additions. ARB fees, although ARB fees were down from, not getting the Charles and not getting those. They still were strong. They still were, in a good position that people are doing the renovations. People are doing the projects at their houses. It may not be the full construction, of a new home. Although I will say that even some of the less desirable lots are starting to get picked up now. So that's been a unexpected, probably variance. Special event income, Chrissy and her crew just continue to add new programs, new events, new stuff, and they're just doing a heck of a job. And we have, I know we are the envy of a lot of communities. I get calls all the time, emails from my colleagues, and they're like, "Hey, can you send me your newsletter? I heard about this event. You guys are doing this or that." And I'm like, can you get me information on it? Because they have a very good reputation. You guys have more programming here than anywhere. I can promise you that. Okay, let's talk. So year-end revenue. I just like to show you this. It kind of shows the three things that I think kind of drive us, which is the daily passes and decals, the ARB, and then the capital transfer fee, just to show you on there. We did come down on the ARB, but we knew that. We budgeted. I mean, when you get something like the Charles or something like the Waterway Gardens, they're going to obviously be anomalies. But we just don't normally have a building with 22 units going up. But it's still, if you look at the rise, everything just continues to kind of work its way up, and it's been a good positive for us to continue to keep our revenues up. Operating expenses. So first of all, give yourself a hand, because again, speaking of being the envy of other communities, our accounts receivable is stupid good. It really is. We had another year. I actually, the funny thing is the auditors come in and we're, going through the stuff. And that's one of the last adjustments I usually make, kind of what they're here, but your allowance for doubtfuls is more than your debt. I'm like, yeah, no, I haven't really had a chance to kind of put my hands around that one yet, but I'll get you an entry on that. It's the other year where not only are we budgeting, for some bad debt expense, we actually have to do a negative to bring the allowance down, because we can't obviously have more than we have debt. So give yourself to have great receivables. You guys are amazing at that. And I can tell you that's not the case everywhere. I mean, that's a very unique situation that we have here. Dolphin Head sand scraping. We didn't do as much as we had budgeted last year. some big news on that front. I know probably a lot of you have kind of been following it and know, but we do have the sand coming down from the town. Hopefully later this summer, we'll do a project that will be
Thanks, Google.
sometimes greater than magnitude
Okay, Google, turn.
past that it'll blow your mind. The thing that we have to keep, and we just did a little project this year, we've got to keep that path open until we can get the equipment out there until they get that pile of sand out there. But you should see some big happenings. And again, I don't want to waste a lot of time on that, but just know that that's going to be a good thing for us going forward, an amazing thing for us. Storm cleanup, we did have some money spent this year, but we were able to transfer a little bit over. And again, anything that's extra on that, we just do the equity transfer over to the weather casualty fund. Spring Lake Pool, we were down a little bit. We honestly just couldn't staff it as much as we wanted to. We just couldn't find lifeguards to do it. We obviously kept it staffed for the important things when the kids were there and all that, but we would have liked to have had it staffed a little heavier, but we just couldn't get them last year. Negative variances, commercial insurance. We took a big hit on cyber. We actually had cyber covered mostly under our regular policies. And now we had to pick up another cyber policy. And obviously you guys are all aware of all the issues that are going on in that field. So that cost us. The property of this year is the one that's going to worry me the most because of all of the events that have happened. Just because it's in California doesn't mean it's not going to affect us, because insurance companies got to recoup their money somehow, and they're going to get it out of everybody. So I'm kind of a bit concerned. We're coming up on renewal here May 1, and we've kind of started the process of getting all the applications out, but I haven't got any quotes back yet. So we'll see how that goes. But it could be a bloody year. We'll see. Security, we've been able to keep the staffing up. And one of the other things that has happened, not just in security, but security because of the large number of personnel, because the wages are getting harder to, find somebody. You're hiring people at a higher rate. Well, what happens is if you hire someone at a higher rate and you have someone who's been there 2 years, and now they're equal, right? You got to go back and adjust. And so it's not just that person, then you got to go and adjust. And so that's one of the things that we've seen, especially, in our hourly people, where we got to be careful that we're retaining what we have as well as being able to attract new ones. So that's been a little bit of an issue there. Tennis Peak, I kind of talked about that already, but so they were both over, but we more than made up for them. Tennis we made up for in revenue and communications, which is made up with the advertising. So they were both over budget, but we made up for it on the revenue side. Like I said, we had a $553,000 surplus, so that was very good, obviously. All right, year-end fund balances. And you can see the big one here. You look at that right here where we dropped. That's where we did the Dolphin Head Wreck project. We've already jumped that one right back up. That one will be the one that will obviously have the most fluctuation. You can see where the hurricanes hit. We built the weather casualty fund back up, and it's been building up. And one of the things that we don't normally count on is getting a whole lot of interest, but because those funds do have some dollars in them, and interest rates are, something, we've actually been able to build those a little bit just with some interest. And then the other thing is major repair replacement fund, and you can see that it's relatively stable. We normally do that. The odd thing is, we have depreciation. We have a major repair replacement budget that we do the projects on. They're usually pretty close to each other. They're relatively pretty close. We usually do, on or about what we have in depreciation. And that's not because that's what we say, we can only spend this much. That's just kind of the way it falls. We do have some, obviously some big projects coming up, and road resurfacing has gone through the roof, and that's like 60% of our budget we spend on roads. So we have budgeted that up a little bit. We can only do 15% of assessments, or we can take money out of other revenue. We did budget that up a little bit this year because of of the increases we've seen. Assessment history, and of course, this is one that you all is important. You can see a little jump there where we brought the assessment up to collect back to get our weather casualty fund back to where it needed to be. We brought it right back down, and it's running a pretty steady line right there. So that's been good. And we told you I said the board told you that they were gonna, and I told you too, but I was hoping they'd fall my back. But we did bring the assessment back down to 3 levels once we collected the funds that we wanted to get that back up. 2025 budget highlights. We do have some more, technology items. We're upgrading the camera system. This is your warning, beware. We can now check you by your car color, what you're wearing on your shirt, what color your hair is. So, and we do have some license plate readers. We do have a new camera system that's pretty high tech and advanced. That's going into place. So, like I said, beware, don't do anything bad. We talked about the online scheduling and payments. As I said, we did the Kids Camp as the kind of beginning pig. We are going to now start adding some other stuff in as we now are comfortable and get that set up. We will have online assessment payments for this year. We just didn't feel like it was a good fit to do the change and do that at the same time. We wanted to get our hands around the new system. We will have that in place. Talked about commercial insurance, also medical insurance. Both of those, were significant increases built into the 25 budget. That you all know. I mean, it's not like I have to sit here and tell you, the situation and all those. We did increase the contribution to major repair replacement fund. I told you that. But we were still able to do a pretty modest, less than 3% increase. So obviously that should make you happy. In summary, strong capital transfer revenue. That's that we had another really positive 683,000 last year, I believe. The revenue surplus was significant. We talked about that. Staffing, is still a challenge. We have to compete with, all the off island as well, and that's been a challenge. And I just had to do some hiring, and I probably got like 100 resumes, and probably 95 of them went in the trash. I mean, the people that are looking down, you really don't want. So it's a tough situation to get yourself around a few people to actually talk to. Fund balances are in a great position. We saw that capital transfer, even though we just finished Dolphin Head, we're back up to 1.5 million. So that's pretty impressive. And like we talked about, getting clean audit. So that is what I have for you.
The financial piece of what we do is probably the most boring part, but it's the most important part. And if you look at that audit and look at the fund balances, the R&R fund, or the casualty fund, the capital fund, and where we are in each of those areas, we are in very, very sound financial ground. And many of you who are new to Hilton Plantation, and many of you property owners that I run into tell me that one of the things that sold them on living here and moving here was looking at our balance sheet and looking at our audit and seeing how financially stable we were, how reasonable our assessment is. And that comes with a lot of work, a lot of oversight from the board. But I just want you to know that Todd and Angela, Natalie, his staff, and everyone else, we treat your money like it's our own. And, we do not spend unnecessarily. We do spend to make money. But we are very, very conservative in everything we do. It's a reflection on what Todd and the staff does, and making sure every signature is in there, every I is dotted, every T is crossed, because that's what gives us that clean audit with no management letter. And those of you who are in corporate America know what it means to get an audit without a management letter. It means that they couldn't find anything to make a suggestion to do it better. And that's a real tip of the hat to the finance committee, to the board, and to the staff with ministers that. The how. The housing market is really driving the revenues. Todd indicated, we basically hit our expense side, right on the noggin. And we were over on income. And we always budget very conservatively on income because we don't know what the housing market is going to do. And you say, well, gee, what's to happen? Well, the housing market is the 0.25% that goes into the capital fund. People move in, and the first thing they want to do is redo their kitchen, redo their bathrooms, add on an addition. That means they go to the ARB and they pay a fee to have it reviewed. Once they get approval, then vendors have to come in and the vendors pay a fee to come in and all of that. When I first arrived here, we were doing about $300,000 in gate fees a year. We're doing $1 million in gate fees a year. And that's not a set, that offsets your assessments. Pippi is knocking it out of the park on advertising revenue now. I think everyone will agree that the island packet has kind of gone circular into the drain. And they're really not an advertising presence on the island. So where did they turn to find locals to show their products to? And they figured out we're it. We get to 10,000 folks. And Pippi came to me with the idea of expanding plantation living to more pages. So not only could we put more copy in, but we could put in more advertising because people wanted to advertise. She was turning people away. And I don't want to turn money away. So between that and several other factors, the revenue side just went way up. Can I predict the future and say that the housing market is going to stay, strong, and all of those things are going to carry on? No, and that's why we do this very conservatively. But that 550 that we're over on, the board will designate to go into the capital fund. And as Todd indicated, we're, I think, at 1.5 million in that fund already, Todd. And yeah, we paid the document. It's done. And now we're in the early stages of looking at this building. So, and this will be by far the biggest project that we do. So with that, oh, one last thing. The folks who went to Ireland with, there were two busloads of folks who went. We actually get a commission from Colette on that as a real revenue source. So, and that was unanticipated. Which was kind of new. We don't know how many people are going to sign up, but the more people that sign up, the bigger the commission we get. So, and that was kind of an unanticipated, revenue source. And it's significant, several $1,000s for each of those trips. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Colton, so that Margie can introduce the nominating committee.
Okay.
Okay, I'm turning it over to Margie to introduce the nominating committee. There you go.
Good morning. It was my distinct pleasure to serve as chair of the 2024, not 2025 nominating committee, and this is my last official duty in that role. Because of their personal experience and knowledge and historical perspective, we have the nominating committee for 2025-2026, comprised of the most recent 8 past presidents willing to serve in that capacity, and it is chaired by the vice president of the board of directors, and that position will be decided on Tuesday afternoon at our orientation session. And so it is my pleasure to announce the 2025-2026 nominating committee, which will be comprised of Jerry Cottrell, who I believe is here. Yeah, Jerry, there's Jerry. Martin Dallas, who will be immediate past president. Randy Matthews, did I see Tony here? Today, Harry Myers. Jim Ogden. Lori Schmidt, thank you, Jim. Lori Schmidt, Warner Schofield. Lois Wilkinson. Lois on the side, thank you, Lois. Dick Sal will be serving as alternate should a vacancy occur during the course of the year before their duties are completed. So again, your 2025-2026 nominating committee. Thank you. The next order of business is the report of the election committee to be given by John Gilbert, chair of the committee.
Thank you. And thanks to all of you who voted.
Yes.
Voting for board members is a critically important thing, as you all know, from hearing what we have done in the past 40-some years. Now it's time to announce the results. As you can see, we had pretty good participation, and the results were actually fairly close. The top 3 vote getters will be members of the board for the next 3 years. I'd also like to take a minute and thank the members of my committee who helped put together these numbers and confirm the accuracy of what we're able to do. Bob Clemens, Mary Stewart Alderman, and Richard Sims. They're not here because they're doing other community activities outside the plantation, but they devoted many, many mornings and afternoons to come in and help process the paper ballots. Now, you can eliminate our job in future by voting online. And for those of you who did vote online, you had a chance to win a prize, which I think is going to be on the next slide. 5 people who voted online by March 17th, several days before voting closed, are going to get $400 certificates as a credit to whatever expenditures they choose to make here on the plantation. So, like I said, you can work us out of a job and you can also do something to help yourself. Vote online, it's easy, and it's safe, and it works. And thank you all for what you did.
Okay, just to provide extra recognition to the people who are members of the board of elections, Christy Grant, Steve McManus, and Lee Zagrilla. Stand up if you need. Let us just say welcome. And then the members of the election board, where's John? John said. Okay. And then the gift certificate recipients? Okay. Yeah, Jeffrey Tomlinson and Julie Steiner, are you here? Okay, Mr. and Ms. John Weigel Jr., are you here? There's pretty.
They should make a new rule, you have to.
Mr. and Mrs. Mark Meyer, Mayer, are you here? Okay, Ms. Jennifer Hyatt. And Mr. Martin Raboff. There's a new rule, I think, the president, I'm going to tell you that, yes. Okay, now what we'd like to do is Peter and I would like to provide recognition to the various people who are committee recognition, community awards, staff recognition, and board recognition.
Okay. First.
No problem.
You're gonna get a picture with the highest corporate officer. As well as being called up. So if you are here, we're gonna start with committee members for years of service. And we're gonna first start out with the 3 years of service. I don't know if Dan Clare is here with the finance committee, but Dan has served on the finance committee for 3 years. And was an integral player in all of those all those policies that the committee set forth. Jim Daniel, Communication Committee. Jim, I know Jim is
Here,
here.
Jim's here.
Come on up, Jim. Jim has served on the Communications Committee for 3 years. Are you gonna do pictures up here?
Of. No,
Can you get on here?
you mean photo, yep, here.
Okay, Chrissy's done the picture. Warming up in the bullpen, Jim Doherty from Security and Safety Committee. Jim, you want to come on up? From service. Thank you, Jim.
Go, there you go.
JT Landreth, ARB, JT. And is Patricia Smith here also with the ARB? Okay, we'll make sure Patricia gets her award. 6 years of service. Mike Druth with the Security and Safety Committee. 6 years. Is Mike here? Okay. James Salvakis with the ARB. Is James here? Okay, moving along. 9 years on the Maintenance Committee. Robert Kusler. Where's Robert? Let's show Robert. Come up. I did not see Harry Myers coming in. Harry's on the nominating committees. Is Harry here? All right, we're going to move on to 12 years of service and a past board president, Jim Ogden, serving on the nominating committee. I have 15 years of service, and this guy has office space at the POA Service Center. He is a former builder and consultant, and he works with Michelle on a daily basis. I think I'm gonna have to start paying him salary. Bob's in for 15 years on the ARB. And you wear short, but today you indulge us with your black jacket.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you did it on the employee section.
He is that.
Thank you, Bob. 40 years of service. And this guy, if you look at the railroad display right in front of the plantation house where the railroad system is, Earl did a lot of that work in putting those buildings together by hand. And we're going to honor Earl Niermeyer for 24 years of service on the recreation director.
Dropped it.
It was so heavy, Paul couldn't listen. All right, and we're gonna move into staff recognition, and this young lady started out as a security officer way back when, and went through, ended up as a sergeant in first shift, and I lured her over to take over the covenants position. And when I lured her over, she said, "Peter, can I keep my sled card just in case I'm not fit for the covenants position?" I said, "Michelle, you can keep your sled card." And she never looked back. And she went from covenants into taking over the ARB position. She's been our ARB administrator for many, many years, but we want to recognize Michelle for 20 years of service. Michelle is also a veteran. All right, here we get into the fun stuff. As I mentioned to you before, Warren is leaving us. All right, his wife has said enough. You know, we'll see how long it takes him to come back, how many closets and things out, and decides to come back in some capacity. But Warren is a Warren is a Marine veteran. He's been to just about every part of the world, fought in several wars to defend us. And after he left the Marine Corps, after a distinguished career, he came to us. And he started out on the third shift, that's the night shift, and as an officer. And he worked his way up to the shift commander of that particular shift. And from there, he became deputy director, and then he became director. And I've learned so much from this guy. And we have stories that we could probably never share with anybody. But we often share them with each other and alone. And we never even have a cocktail for fear of it spilling out into the public. But Warren, it's an absolute honor to have him staff. You know, Warren is a Star Trek fan, and so am I, and he knows it. And every year, Warren gives me something that's Star Trek. And if you come by, you can see I got socks on my feet with ears. For Christmas. And Chrissy gives me a hard time every time Warren gives me something Star Trek related.
That story be told true. You go and drop a dime on me and Chrissy comes and yell at me.
Thank you, Peter. And now we'd like to give special recognition for 25 wonderful years of service to our general manager, Peter Christian. Thank you for that. Before we make the actual presentation, we also want to inform the group that the Personnel Committee, the Executive Committee, and the Board has approved a 3-year extension for this gentleman.
Yeah.
All right, now we go to Community Service Awards. And I know they're going to be representatives of these groups that will come up. So, please come up. The Artists Association for holding their art event on the bluff, which was a huge success. They came up with this idea, did it down in Dolphin Head, and it was wonderfully attended throughout the community. And we want to thank them for putting that together and their hard work. And there are many people who did that. And this is for the avid gardeners. And since we had a brand new recreation building down at Dolphin Head, we had to figure out, it was big enough now to put Christmas decorations in it. And they volunteered to decorate it, an outstanding job. So we'd like to recognize the avid gardeners for their assistance in decorating Dolphin Head Pavilion. Is there any representatives from the avid gardeners here to accept? We have the Women's Club, and the Women's Club does so many fundraisers and so many positive things for folks both in the community and outside of the community. I can't say enough about their giving, but their support for Deep Well and the greater community. The Women's Club continues to be devoted to helping others and the HHV community. So if the representatives of Women's Club here to accept, please. The next one is a rather fun one because it's rather topical. The Bocce Club, and just like the Fishing Club, has turned to mentoring kids how to teach their passion. And last year, the Bocce Club worked with our staff in Kids Camp to teach the kids how to play bocce. They have not taught them how to smoke cigars. It went to a little bit old, but I know that John Hupchek, the president of the Bocce Club, is here, and we just cut a ribbon on 2 new bocce courts yesterday afternoon. Now, the next award goes to a family, but the guy who's going to represent the family, I'm going to have a little fun with. Just because the Bocce Club is right before him.
Right.
This gentleman was on the board when we installed the first 2 bocce courts, and he was a skeptic. And he said to me, and the entire board at that time, way back in, I don't know, about 2005, 2006, he said, if you get 100 people, he swears it's 300 people, but we're far past that. I'll push it to play bocce. I'll push a bocce ball down the length of the court with my nose.
Right.
This guy has served on the board for 9 years in the past, served as past president, been on the nominating committee, and is currently on the communications committee. He's done so much for the community. And he and his family have donated that fountain that's out in Spring Lake. So Tom Hoppin, come on up.
Now, the reason we were not, there was two of us on the board at the time that opposed the expenditure of the money for the bocce courts. The reason we were skeptical was because it was a grand total of $35,000 for two bocce courts. And one of us had just come back from Italy and seen a bunch of gentlemen playing bocce on a gravel driveway. The damn sure didn't cost 35 grand. So we voted against it. But I'm glad to see that it's now taken on. It's doing very well.
And I can assure you that the two new courts did not cost that much. No, they were less than that.
You smartened up.
No, you picked it up.
Oh, we gotta get back over here. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, last of the Community Service Award is going to go to the Hilton Head Plantation Crafters for their craft sales, donations to charity. HHP Crafters have for 20 years presented two craft fairs annually. Benefiting hospice and Low Country. Hospice Low Country has been the major beneficiary of the proceeds from these events, and cumulative donations are in excess of $250,000.
Wow.
All right, now we move on. We have a odd situation. We have three retiring board members. And the first one we're going to recognize is Jordan Berlin. And Jordan has served on the board with distinction for 2 terms. And during that time, he has been on one of the most difficult assignments that a board member can be put up to. And that's the ARB. They probably have the longest meetings by far. They get into tremendous detail. Decisions that they make are sometimes applauded and sometimes challenged. But Jordan has led that committee now for 6 years, and we're going to have a tough time filling your shoes. So we really appreciate all your time and service. And Lori couldn't be here. And again, she had emailed me yesterday and really wanted to thank all of you for the support you gave her over her 6 years on the board. Lori was board president as well. She served on the Covenants Committee, the Nominating Committee. She chaired the Executive Committee in 2003. She was board secretary and recreation committee chairwoman. She was board treasurer and finance committee chairwoman. And she just did so much. Prior career with the town and in banking. And she led the efforts for all of the things that the finance committee did to go over, for keeping your money safe and make sure we're getting the greatest return on our investments. And said you really, really appreciated the support and your willingness to provide input to her. And she again apologized profusely for not being able to be here, but she didn't want to pass on to any of us which affliction she came down with. So we will make sure that Lori gets her gift. And last but not least is the big guy over there, the head corporate officer, Carlton Dallas. And Carlton has been a board member since 2022. He was secretary and chairman of the governance committee. He was board vice president and chairman of the nominating committee. And he was board president for 2024, 2025. And I got to tell you, this guy was an absolute treat to work with. Just by the numbers, and he just kept the ball moving forward all the time. He was a welcome task manager. He knew exactly what he wanted to accomplish, and he got it all done. And it's amazing. He is on the Beaufort County School Board. Are you vice chair now? Yes. And he has risen to the position of vice chair in his first term of the Beaufort County School Board. So you can see that others have realized his potential. He served on numerous committees before he was elected to the board. In fact, he lost several board elections, and I kept on poking him and said, keep on trying. And he's here. And I hate to see him go, but he is going on to bigger and better things and serving bigger things within the greater community. And we're going to miss him, but anything we can do to support you, Carlton, in the future, we're here for you. I think you should go side by side.
I'll be very brief. It's been an absolute joy being on the POA in various positions. Peter noticed some, but I also did like 6 committees to learn about the POA plantation and develop relationships. So I want to thank you for accepting me and giving me the honor of this position. And I'll be around just doing different things, but I can always do reach my phone.
Question. I've got a couple, and I think a couple of the other staff members have them well. Many of our tennis players are going to Palmetto Dunes and Shipyard to play instead of Spring Lake. Can we offer competitive rates and availability here? Trevor and I look at those rates all the time, and we believe they are competitive. And what we believe we're seeing is people leaving from other tennis communities and moving to ours. So we'll see how this season goes. We made several changes, and I know some of them were controversial, and we adapted. But we're going to move forward with the program. We have 2 new bocce courts. We have pickleball. We have a brand new assistant pro, Emil, and who has been very, very well received. And I have every confidence that our tennis program is going to move forward in a very positive direction. One of my favorite topics, pickleball. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the US. Over 500 members in HHP Club. Even without day facilities, HHP is the only major development without real courts. Well, there are 3 real courts down in Dolphin Head. They're being utilized. And as is our process, we surveyed the community, and pickleball came out and at a third, and we will survey the community again and see where that comes out. It doesn't mean that pickleball courts are not in our future. It just means they're presently not a community priority, but we will continue to look at that sport. What came in second was actually the security gates. And someone gave me a card, can we put an automated gate at the front gate? I would love to put an automated gate at the front gate. We have two gates there. One is the main gate that is, used for residents, but I know sometimes you have others that sneak into there. But the other one is for guests and vendors to go through. And if we made that automated at night, the problem is going to be even though it cycles too slowly than what a human can do. And we have that fire and rescue department right down the block, and we don't want to block that intersection in case they do it. With a staff member there, we can clear that intersection very, very quickly. With a gate there, it makes it very, very difficult. But we are going to look at that whole configuration. We will develop a plan for it and absolutely want to do something there where we can utilize a gate. But the way it's set up now, the main gate and the visitors gate blocks the view of that particular lane. So there's no passive surveillance like you have at the Cypress gate where the officer can see the car in the queue. So we would have to physically move that gatehouse to another location. So if we put the gate there, the arm there, the officer from the main gate can see it. So we have looked at that. We know that many people want that. However, right now, we need to have the funds or the ability to do it. What are the results of the covenants review? Well, we published a brand new set of rules and regulations. They have been filed with the county land records. Highlights, Rex is not here, so I can't do it off the top of my head. If that person wants to see me, I'll be happy to go over the highlights of the rules and regulations with them. Does HHP have any plan to make capital investments in bike paths, similar to the capital improvements recently made at Dolphin Head Road? We have 10 miles of leisure path. If we replaced all of our leisure paths at one time, we would run between $2.5 and $3 million. We have dedicated $40,000 in the R&R fund to leisure path repairs and another $50,000 in our regular operating account. So between the two accounts, we have $90,000. We have done this as patching where it's needed, and we live in a growing environment, and we'll put in new asphalt, and 2 years from now, we'll get root intrusion buckling the brand new asphalt. So it's ongoing. So even if we spend $2.5 million and replace every single path with new asphalt, in a year or two, we're going to be back to patching it again. So we're doing, the best that we can. And the board had asked me to put more funding into it. We have doubled the funding for that particular amenity, and we'll continue to do it. And David and the maintenance committee went out last year and marked all the spaces, and they're going to do the same thing again for this year, and redo and mark all those spaces again with this root intrusion. One of the biggest moans that I have is when I came here down Seabrook Drive, all the way from Stoll Creek down to Royal James on those wonderful sycamore trees. And they're the worst possible tree you can plant next to asphalt or sidewalk. They are root heavy. They run surface roots. And I'm constantly repairing, the asphalt path here because of that root intrusion. I jokingly have said to our hurricane contractor, God forbid we have another hurricane evacuation. When you guys come in with your heavy equipment to clear the roads, if those sycamore trees are still standing, please knock every single one of them down. It's an ongoing challenge to keep up with the root intrusion. The annual, okay, that's exactly what I said. I think, you have any time? Okay.
And just to piggyback on the leisure path, this was 24 was the first year that we had that double fund development operating. So be a little bit patient, because obviously that will stack upon itself as we move forward, and we can't do everything in 1 year, but it will, I think over, the next 3 or 4 years, we'll see where it's better than it was, with the extra funds. I had a question, and it's basically, why do we have, 512,000 in uninsured, bank accounts that are FDIC bank accounts? So the finance committee, we spent almost a whole meeting discussing what is a level that we can safely keep in the operating account to operate. Obviously, we're a pretty big corporation and we run some pretty big expenses. We came up with a level of trying to keep that at $1 million or less. That was kind of the threshold. We reported to the board that was what we felt like we could live with, which would leave about 500 uninsured. The real reason we're at 512 though is we had a $900,000 note that matured right at the end of the year. And that $900,000 note obviously came into our account as funds. I can tell you that we are now back laddered like we always do. We take the funds that come into the assessments. We go ahead and invest them. We start in December, work our way backwards, invest in that money. So that is what we deem as an acceptable amount to be able to operate efficiently.
Okay, this individual has a trifecta. Well, what is the process for determining when a road needs to be repaid? I have a list of old roads, and David and I sit down, and that is a computerized list, and it pops up with a aging report, and David and I actually go out and review the roads that come up on the list. If there is a road that's not on the list and somebody brings it to our attention, we'll go out and take a look at it. Like the leisure paths, there are some roads that we've had that are 20 years old and are fine. There are other roads that every 10 to 12 years need attention just because of root intrusion and the land that they were built on. Obviously, this is very marshy soil. It moves all the time. Deerfield Road, Pineland Road are two culprits that we constantly deal with. But if you have a particular road that you want us to look at, we're happy to take a look at it. David is right now putting together a list of areas to be patched, and we already have identified, I think, the roads we're going to do for this year. But it is by far the biggest part of our R&R budget, or repair replace, almost $700,000 a year in roadway repairs. And unfortunately, as you well know, asphalt has gone sky high. I am hoping with the present different approach to the oil industry that maybe those prices will come down over the summer. We'll see. We've already seen some relief in that area with gasoline prices. Who do we contact when there is an issue? You can contact me, you can contact David. Is there a maintenance committee? Absolutely. Mike Harris chair of the maintenance committee. I don't know if Mike is going to chair that committee next year. That will be a decision of the new board when they're seated. How do you contact them? Send an email into the board or send an email into me or to David. David is the liaison to the maintenance committee, and he will give that information to the maintenance committee. We have lived in HHP since 1998. Love it. Is there well known many more new, I think, residents are moving here. Can we please enhance the stop sign at the Y? We'll take a look at that. A lot of people have suggested we put a traffic circle there. The greatest number of accidents occur. Traffic circle. I know that it's difficult for some people to look over their shoulder to see the oncoming traffic from Seabrook Drive as they're approaching that, but we'll take a look at that intersection. How will obtaining a gate guest pass change with the new website? Yeah, it's wrong. I mean, you go online with your PIN number and put in your password and do it. Is there anything different about it?
So I'm going to stand by the camera so the Zoomers can hear me. So in essence, you'll still find a link to the guest pass, just like you did on the old website, on the Engage site. It's on the home page at the bottom under quick access links. You'll also find it under community information, and there's a more fully explained how to. But I want to encourage everybody, y'all, Gate Access, it's a downloadable app, and it will simplify your request for a gate pass so much. It links right into the ABDI system, and it eliminates you having to log in and put in your information every time you request a gate pass. So look at Gate Access. I strongly recommend that as a way to request your pass.
It's in the system that runs the gates. You have a completely different animal
Mike,
than you do,
Mike.
You have completely different animal than you do, like community management software. And obviously ours is, a little more complex than others, but they do not interface. There's not, and I can tell you, if we looked at the software for us, there's not one out there that does everything you want. You're gonna have to take a hit one place or another because it just doesn't, it doesn't exist. There's nobody that's gonna do all those things, try to put in one place, and all that's you need to do is. And so the ABDI system is what it does. It gets better.
Yeah, another person asked about a scanner for the front gate, and same answer. That's something we're gonna look at, but we really need to just redesign that whole front gate in order to accommodate that. Next one is, can we drop the word plantation from our name, have a community contest for a new name? Signage, some of the signs are worn out, please survey and repair wrong way sign by tennis courts. Thank you for letting me know that. Shrubs and hedges in some places are overgrown in front of sign. Remove shrubs in front of the sign. So we'll take a look at, you can be more specific and get with David on that. That would be very helpful. We will be. And this is another, when will we change our name? When will committee terms be limited? How can I get the POA to consider no single use plastics policy? And that's all I have. And Trevor, you have any? Chrissy, you have any? Anyone else for the good of the order? No. Okay. Yeah. Please mention it to David and we'll take a look at it. Not a problem. Not a problem. Okay, Mr. President, I'm going to turn it back over to you for final comments and adjournment.
In concluding comments, I want to thank you all for being here. I want to congratulate all the people who won notification and honor for their service. It means a lot to the POA. And so we really do appreciate that. I'd like to take one item of extra utilization. It will only take about 30 seconds. Hold it close. There's a lady sitting over to the left, and I'm going to get in trouble for this. In the Dallas family, she's known as the Queen Bee. She inspires, she supports, and at various times, she constrains me. So if I can get her to stand, Miss Dallas, he's so good and she's showing. Now, if anyone has a special room you're willing to rent for about a week, I mean. And with that, thank you, you're a great population, you're a great group of people, great group of leaders, and we are now adjourned. Thank you.
Great to be with you, James.